mulengerera wala nno. I expect that, like I was invited in Kyankwanzi, I will be invited to the NRM caucus in the spirit of unity, which we all agree on. And we talk objectively about the agenda of the 12th Parliament, and we agree. I've been called a visitor in NRM. As a visitor, you must recognize boundaries. And the head of the home can change the rules anytime. The head of the home can say lunch will be eaten at 10 a.m. Supper will be eaten at midnight. As a visitor, really, you have very little to say about that. The visitor can say all lights must be switched off by 8 a.m. and the visitor has to comply. That one I accept. So, what I believe is that there should be clear processes. But if one is locked out, then you feel that you have not been treated well. I'm glad the president intervened and I was not locked out of Kyankwanzi. I believe I'll not be locked out of facing the caucus, which is the caucus of the voters. Let the caucus be the ones to pronounce themselves and say, in our considered opinion, for the following reasons, this is the person we will rally behind. I still believe I have an opportunity and a chance to be the speaker. You know how I think. One day somebody told me, are you sure you can be speaker? What chance do you have? Then I said, by the way, if I'm on the top floor of a very tall building and the building catches fire, and I'm told that I have a 1% chance to survive if I jump, I'll jump immediately. I've not heard anybody saying Mao has no chance. There are those who had said the former speaker was too big to fall. But that's the same false evidence appearing real. That's not David's logic. The logic of the generals who ran away from Goliath was that the guy is too big, there's no way we can beat him. David, with his sling, turned that logic upside down and said, the guy is so big I can't even miss him. That's the logic with which I approach this fight. Others are saying, too big, how can we manage? I say, oh, too big, how can I miss? Even with a butida. Let me now speak about the opposition finally. Life is very ironic. The opposition should thank me. You were supposed to be walloped. Yeah. You heard it. They said that in the last parliament you were swallowed. That in this parliament you are going to be walloped. You should thank me for disarming those who wanted to wallop you. That is really being walloped. Now, this is my thinking on the opposition. And that is why the NRM should not think they are risking anything. The first question is Mao a patriot? And that question should go to the Patriotic League of Uganda. Because even among them they have unpatriotic people. Because you don't just become a patriot by wearing a league. That I have seen some of the most immoral people wearing the biggest rosaries They're even the first in the line for Holy Communion. So let other people talk about you. That's why I said, is Mao a patriot? When I was risking my life to go and talk to Kony, was I doing it for myself and my family? I wanted Uganda to be peaceful. When I was campaigning so that President Museveni's votes are a block where I come from, was I doing it for myself? It's because I don't only preach unity, I practice it.
Even the time we went to Rwanda for purity.
I have been to many countries, Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya. We have been the biggest advocates for iPod. That is because we are not dead fish. We swim in a direction we believe is right. And sometimes you pay a price. That is what DP is known for. And that's why we are respected. Partisan politics. And he refused to listen, and you saw it ended in tears in 1966. We have 5 years of the 12th Parliament. I don't want a situation where people will say, Mao warned us about improvising a speaker. So to my friends in the opposition, being opposition is not a badge of honor. It means your votes were not enough for you to form the government. That's what it means. But I hear some people take a lot of pride. They even quarrel. But only opposition. I mean, it is like you have a loser's cup and you say, no, 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 no. You can't come and help us carry the loser's cup. Honestly, what sort of politics is that? Being opposition means you have the loser's cup. Now, nobody celebrates the loser's cup. I think in football, the loser's cup is the one they said, the one of third and fourth position. So, they take so much pride. Oh, you see opposition, you. And this is like saying, you are not one of us who lost. People are fighting to be winners, for you are fighting that it's, you losers are already enough. The only way you can be winners is if the losers keep becoming more and more. Then you become more than the winners. Then you become the new winners. So there is some mental illness in some of our leaders, which I see. Because I've seen some people had been hired to attack me and so on. All of a sudden, when things change, they are not looking good anymore. DP has a PhD in opposition politics. Because we have opposed and opposed and opposed, and yet we were the first government before independence. Some of you young DPs have even forgotten that your party has ever been in. If the president of Uganda is not ashamed to introduce himself as a DP, though he says that his DP is not the one of Mao, I need to find out which one was his DP. He says, no, that is DP of Mao. Maybe because of the bickering and the small thinking in the DP elite. Because if you have people whose only thinking is, Mao yafuna anzi safuna, that's the reason why they are running around. But it is not true. There was a time they also funad, only that they have forgotten. There was a time they also got, and Mao was leading his normal life, not complaining. The Baganda say, yagaliza ofune, atayagaliza tafuna. Because I was doing okwagaliza, that's where I ended up in the cabinet. But to make that a matter of life and death to the extent that you want to tear your party apart, you look at the way the opposition is. FDC came from NRM. They then said Mugisha Muntu is a mole. He left. Then those who remained again disagreed. That means Mugisha Muntu was not the problem. Now you have PFF. So a party which was solid like FDC now has 10 members of parliament. Nine. It was, in our place there, it was the biggest challenger to NRM. Now after NRM, the next party is DP.
Yeah.
Then we had our friends in DP here. They said Mao is a dictator, he is not leading the party well, that he is a mole, he doesn't want to work together with other opposition, that this is a party for their grandfathers, and Mao is an imposter, that my umbilical cord was not buried in their graveyards. So they left, they went to NUP. They reached there, then they quarreled. I wasn't there. So was I still the problem?
No.
So I have given advice to our sister party NRM, and it is just advice. I'm in no position to direct anyone. I've also given advice as an elder to the pressure group of the PLU. Now I want to talk to, and in that I said, you know, if that is the party that had a symbol in the election, that's what I would do.
Yes.
Now, the parties that don't get sufficient votes to form the government are the ones called the opposition. The opposition does not mean anybody who is a nuisance, then you're opposition. Otherwise, the robbers and rapists would also say they're opposition because they're opposing the law, they're interfering with the peace and tranquility. Opposition is based on the results of the last election. The goal of the opposition should be to defeat and replace the party in power at the next election. I took this from some of the notes I had prepared. Remember, I was supposed to give a speech in Kyankwanzi, the speech which was aborted. So I took this paragraph which I'm sharing with you. In our constitution, that opportunity to replace the party in power comes every 5 years. So the opposition can do this through small successive victories, and that would then reduce the faith of the public in the government, so that in the next election the electorate is persuaded to put them in power. Now this is where DP is different from other parties. Listen carefully. Even though the role of the opposition is to bring about the defeat of the party in power, there is little merit in an opposition party making its main job to obstruct the government's efforts to perform the task it was elected to do. Let me repeat this. Even though the role of the opposition is to bring about the defeat of the party in power, there is little merit in an opposition party making it its main job to obstruct the government's effort to perform the tasks it was elected to perform. After all, when a party is given the right to govern a country, its duty is to promote the welfare of the people. So, once again, power must have purpose. You want to be speaker, for what? What are you going to do with the position? You want power, for what? You want to be president, for what? There are people even who wanted to be president of the party. For what? So that you do what? so that you call yourself Senkagale. For me, I want to be the speaker because of the reforms I'm going to introduce. And I've already mentioned some of them. We discovered that the Parliament of Uganda sits for less than 90 days in a whole year. Sitting of plenary. Under Mao's leadership, the minimum number of days must be 120.
Yeah. Mao.
Number two, we must have a calendar of Parliament set at the beginning of the session. The moment I'm elected Speaker, we will have to sit in a multi-party committee and set the calendar for the Parliament so that we reduce surprises and uncertainties. The government would tell us their timetable and say, by March we are going to bring this law. By July we are going to bring this law. August we are going to bring this law. So we are all mentally prepared for it. Number three, I will ensure that a special session is held annually, and the agenda of that session must be based on suggestions from the public. It should focus on issues the public want. First of all, the majority of members of Parliament are not in touch with their public. So we may as well directly invite the public to say, suggest, what do you want us to talk about? Do you want us to talk about the Ugandans that are being exported as labor? Do you want us to talk about land conflicts, land grabbing? Do you want us to talk about teenage pregnancy? The public should have an avenue. We also want the Prime Minister's question time to be a very serious session to ensure that Parliament upholds the principle of government accountability. It shouldn't be an empty ritual. You know, some of the questions that we hear, a member of Parliament asks, question 1, is the Prime Minister aware? Then answer, Honorable, government is not aware. 2, question 2 does not arise. After all, we are not aware, so you can't ask us what we are going. That's what I call an empty ritual in question time. And that's why the role of the leader of opposition is very important, to face off with the leader of government business. Airtime must be given to elected representatives of the people. The Speaker must not be interrupting members. If you go to the Hansard, the presiding officers of the House have spoken more words than most of the members of Parliament because they want to make a comment on every speech. It is like a referee wanting to touch the ball also. How can a referee want to touch the ball? If the other team is lousy, so be it. You can advise them after the sitting and say you played very badly. The moment the leader of opposition has spoken, automatically the presiding officer should say, leader of government business, do you have anything to say? Since Parliament is going to have technology, for the first time, no member of Parliament will hide in the chorus of aye and no. You will know exactly who voted on what issue, who supported which issue, and you, the media, will go and say, you know, somebody can say, I never supported that thing, you know. You go to the record of votes, because the moment the Speaker says, the votes are now open, everybody presses, yes, no, and the record goes there, to be stored for eternity until Jesus returns. You know, we had that circus in the last Parliament. We had this Toji Kwatako, lifting the age limit. Many of the members in the opposition were playing double. they are holding meetings and saying, we have no problem with this law, but how will our people, our voters see us? To the extent that when the speaker suspended some members, others went to lobby, please suspend us also. Otherwise, too far, ground too far. So the next day, the speaker brought a supplementary list. In addition to those I suspended yesterday, I hereby suspend the following also. What sort of parliament is that? Is that leadership or dealership?
Dealership. The dealers should go.
Now, we also want some specific dates when the opposition sets the agenda. You know, the opposition go around saying, for us, we have no say. But these guys are many. When Mao is speaker, Mao is going to say, opposition, you also represent a section. Now, what is important to you? Bring it on in the agenda. No hiding. No hiding. Because they just keep reacting. Ping pong, ping pong, ping pong. The government says the ping must come from your side. We are also going to do the ponging. So start. Like in a game, they say you serve now. You are saying that I'm bringing a bullet. You now bring your bullet and we see. That is what will happen when Mao is speaker.
Yeah.
I'm telling you these things to show you that I'm not just seeking to be speaker because I want to wear that horse hair and call myself Right Honorable Speaker. I have thought about this thing carefully, and I'm doing it only for this time, the next 5 years, to save Parliament. The other idea that we have, I've already talked about recorded votes, to ensure transparency. Because there are those who, instead of saying no, they just yawn. We will revive the Independent Parliamentary Budget Office.
Wow. Yeah.
In addition, we want members of Parliament to stop this business of bringing mwana wa koja, mwana wa jaji. But when you're a member of Parliament, you go to the village, then they say, Mwana wa Senga is there, has no job. Take him to Parliament. Then the only job they do is go and bring this money from the bank. Go and do this. After 5 years, what experience have they got which can make them employable? Zero. As party president, I'm proud that I've brought people to be my assistants. I've mentored them. You remember Elvis Kintu. I could not afford to keep him. Eventually, the Lord Mayor stole him. Went and assisted him. I've mentored so many others. You must get people who have potential, not people who are stuck in the village. If they are stuck in the village, first prepare them before bringing them. You cannot bring them immediately. We are also going to ensure that documents of Parliament are translated in local languages. Parliamentary reports should be translated into local languages. You've seen how the election of Speaker has become a national issue. Since when has the election of Speaker become an issue for everybody? But now the vegetable sellers, borders, taxi touts, all of them are saying this issue of speakership, because we have made it we have made it clear to them that the kind of person elected speaker, we will ensure that the gallery is open again. As you know, the gallery members the Ugandans don't know that they actually are entitled to go to the gallery. We should have a fixed number of people who can come and access the gallery on a first come, first served basis. Those days we used to walk from Makerere, and they would give you little cards. If the cards are finished, they tell you the gallery is now full, try tomorrow. So people would go and queue. Have you seen people queuing to go to the gallery? People are queuing to go and beg for support from MPs. They are not interested in the discussion because they doubt whether it can change their lives. So the most important thing is, oh, Mbaka ino kumpa yo champa. But somebody would say, I want to go and see whether the Mbaka is going to increase PDM money access to ensure that corruption stops in the district, or whether my school will get a teacher's house or a new. Parliament is out of touch with the life of the country, and it is not up to date. I know for sure that we are tackling the national question, and we are also tackling the question of colonialism, the effects of colonialism and the trauma it caused. Because this system of politics was just transplanted. It is a graft. So I am not discouraged at all, and I repeat that our agreement with the NRM is a dynamic document, because you will be asking, why would I expect to be invited to the caucus? The cooperation agreement is not a monument, it is a dynamic document. Under Article 7, it is provided that new areas of cooperation will be agreed upon. And we have proposed to the President that the position of Speaker should be a new area of agreement. And I'll gladly submit to the decision of the caucus, but not the pronouncements that are not based on well-stated processes. I'm strengthened by the latest position declared by the chairman of the Electoral Commission of the NRM. After all, we want to save Uganda. I want to take a few questions in English. Then I will say, I'll respond. Not a meeting. This was a party, and we had the speeches that were made. But again, as you know, this is not the first time we have had endorsements from the PLU. If you can withdraw once, you can withdraw twice. They withdrew, they had endorsed, then the same person went, and the person who signed the letter, because for him, he said, he follows orders, whatever is ordered to do, and by now we must be accustomed to orders changing. Everything changes except the law of change. The law of change will not change. He wrote a letter saying they have got guidance, and they even invoked the name of the chairman of NRM and said, we endorse the incumbents. You saw that letter. Then, after the swearing-in ceremony, you saw a press conference withdrawing the endorsement. Then this time, we had the pronouncement in Mukono that now they have a new name. At that time, they had not mentioned the deputy. I saw today something on X. So I have no desire to contradict people who are pursuing their goals. That is their goal. But for me, I'm looking at something bigger. But I want you to know my honest opinion. I think many people see the PLU leader as the rising sun, and they see the chairman of NRM as a setting sun. And naturally, people want to gravitate towards the rising sun. But they forget that it's the same sun which sets, which also rises. There are no two suns. How many suns do we have?
Only one.
It is one. This same Njuba, Ejagoroba. Then it comes back. Now the rushing around, you see, what you are right actually to call it drama, because it is dramatic. When somebody says one thing today, then says the exact opposite with the same conviction. How can you not call that drama? So people want to be right. Every member of the political class is struggling to be right. You know, there was once a man who reached a village and he found a board, and on the board there were circles written with the center, which we call the bull's eye, and there were arrows in the center, meaning that somebody with a very good marksmanship had hit the arrows in the bull's eye. So he asked someone, who is this good marksman who cannot miss? And then they said, it is the village fool. He said, bring him to me. So he asked the village fool when he arrived, you are such a good marksman, how do you manage to hit the center of the circle? And the village fool said, it is very simple. I first shoot the arrows, then I draw the circle afterwards. I think that's what is happening in Uganda. Nobody wants to be wrong. So, in order not to be wrong, you don't take any risks. You support everybody. So, in a country where people believe that the chairman of the PLU is the rising sun, it is a politics of positioning. But that shouldn't surprise you. Like now, people would want to be close to Prince Semakokiro because they calculate that, you know, in future he's going to be the future king. So if you want to be Katikiro, maybe you start, if you want your son to be Katikiro, you make sure they become friends. This is natural. I understand that as a political philosopher. So that is why that village in Mukono has now become the most famous place for political pilgrimage. And there's nothing wrong with that. I speak to the chairman of PLU, and we enjoy mutual respect. But what I'm sure all Ugandans should really be disappointed with is the members of parliament forgetting that they have a responsibility to choose their speaker. They have a responsibility. They cannot blame anyone else. They made a mistake, but you cannot persist in the same mistake because you have invested a lot in making that mistake. Or you have spent a lot of time making the mistake, then you insist on keeping that mistake. So that's my explanation to that. But I do believe that the processes must be followed. I answered your question earlier. I said the General Secretary of PLU who made the announcement also agreed with what Professor Tanga Odoi said. He said, I agree. What does that tell you? So we must now let our members of parliament know that don't pass on that responsibility. If the president himself, who is the chairman of NRM, has said, as SEC, we can make our recommendation, but it is the caucus really to make the final decision. That's why my question was, many others can make a decision. Even DP can. The other day I saw the Kampala DPs endorsing me, but they say there are so few. One of our members said that I would have really achieved a lot if I get 8 votes. that will be historic. But my votes are with the Ugandans. I am today proclaiming myself the people's speaker. Automatically, there's no question about that. And that house belongs to the people. So that is really my response to your sense of confusion, I think. Because you're confused about who is to be waited for. So you are saying, are the members of parliament waiting for direction? I think their direction should come from the party. And many times, there are members who have even disagreed with their party. Because you are elected, and you need to be persuaded. I think in a democracy, there must be persuasion. So the process matters a lot. Otherwise, the outcome will be flawed. For instance, if members of parliament are bribed, as I understand they were being bribed, then would you say that process is really credible? So we need members of parliament. We should have some respect for the members of the 12th parliament. We can guide them and say, we should be like a signpost. You know, if a signpost is pointing this way, if you think it is not going to take you where you want to go, you use. When you are lost, you can come back. But I don't expect the members of the 12th parliament to hand over their responsibility to anybody. And that's why the right forum will be the caucus, where they will debate the merits of all the candidates, and then they agree. And when that decision is made, because you asked, what will happen if you are not the candidate? What will happen if I'm not the candidate and the caucus has decided is for me to support, because I will be persuaded, but not arm-twisted. There's a difference between being persuaded and being arm-twisted. Or unless you're asking what will happen to me. I'm not bothered about what will happen to me. Me, I'm like the good Samaritan. I'm looking at the injured parliament, like that injured person beaten by robbers, though the robber has been caught. So the parliament is like that injured person in that dangerous road. And others are bypassing, the Pharisees and so on, who are now claiming, I never saw the injured person, I would have done this. That good Samaritan did not ask, what will happen to me if I stop at this dangerous place? He asked, what will happen to this man if I don't stop? So me, I'm not asking what will happen to me as Norbert Mao. I'm asking what will happen to Parliament if I don't step forward and offer myself. That's the difference between me and the other people. So I urge you and all Ugandans, don't cry for Mao, cry for yourselves instead. I think those words are in the Bible. Jesus told the women of Jerusalem that women of Jerusalem, don't cry for me. Cry for yourselves and your children. So temunkabira, mwekabire mweka. Because me, I've shown you what can be done to salvage the situation. I think that is all the, okay, a last one. Because if the citizens and voters are invertebrates, then they will elect invertebrates. So I'm asking the citizens of Uganda to be vertebrates, to have backbone. That way they will elect leaders with backbone also. It is as simple as that. So I'm tired of citizens pretending that they know nothing about how their leaders become leaders. If they buy you alcohol, they bribe you and you vote, who do you blame? You should blame only yourself. But this idea of saying this and this and this and that, me, I have faith that President Museveni will lead this process and there will be agreement.
Yeah.
The same way that he came out strongly and resolved this imbroglio of the former speaker. Because finally he is the one who took the step. Others have been massaging the cancer of corruption with Vaseline. But he's the one who got the knife and made the orders. And therefore, he will also resolve this confusion. And the sooner it is resolved, the better. After all, in the spirit of 1986, where DP was trusted with very sensitive positions, Minister of Finance, yes, it was Ponciano Mulema. Agriculture, we had many. We had the Kafumbe Mukasas, Robert Kitariko, Zachary Olum. Dr. Semogere was in charge of internal affairs and also eventually a deputy prime minister. So that is the spirit I'm talking about. And then leaders going to parliament to cooperate to solve the people's problems. And the opposition not making it its business to frustrate the government. You must bring alternative views. That is the essence of my message. So the ball is in the president's court. We are going to be alive, all of us. I don't know how things will move after this. My job is to warn. But I'm also a respected elder within the PLU, as you know. So let me offer some advice. And this is not the first time I've offered advice. The first advice I gave one time was when some of them wanted to register a political party. And I told them that we also face that dilemma as members of Uganda Young Democrats, UYD. There was a time we were so frustrated with our party. It appeared stuck, they were bickering, they were slow. We wanted to form a party. Fortunately, we've eventually debated and we agreed that no. What we should endeavor to do is to ensure that one of us takes over the leadership of the party. That's why I'm here. It is the UYD which propelled me. So, I agree that the PLU will determine the next generation of leaders of NRM, from the top